Hey, what is up, everybody? This is Cam from Epic Conversions. Hope you're doing amazing out there on this fine Friday evening. And today I want to talk to you about more AI and copyright. I did a live stream, I think it was yesterday. We were talking about AI and copyright. And I had someone ask me a question on that live stream. They wanted to know if prompts were copyrightable. Can I copyright my prompts? That was the question. We're gonna get into it tonight. It's like, and the thing is, I answered that question later on in comment, and I said I believe that the output is not copyrightable at this time. You cannot copyright the output of AI, but the prompts you can copyright because it's a form of expression. That's what I believe. Now, I'm not a lawyer, okay, but that's what I believe. However, I did a little more research on that because I didn't know if I was right or not. I hadn't really looked into the prompts. I hadn't really looked into if you can copyright the prompts or not. Now what I discovered was pretty surprising. So let me share my screen with you. But first, let me just make sure that things are working right on this thing. I want to make sure you guys are actually seeing what is happening here. Okay, so can you copyright AI prompts? Okay, very cool. I think we're good to go. Okay, so cool. So let me share my screen, and I will share what's going on with you. Here we go. Okay, so I printed this out. This is a little thing I pulled up here. This is a simple AI overview. Okay, so we're going to look at two sources here. Okay, this is an AI overview. Are AI prompts copyrightable? Okay, based on guidance from the U.S. Copyright Office, USCO, as of early 2025, AI prompts alone are generally not considered copyrightable, nor do they typically confer copyright protection over the resulting AI-generated output. Here is a breakdown of the current legal landscape regarding AI prompts and copyright. Key takeaways on AI prompts. Prompts as ideas versus expression. You see, when I answered that guy's question, I was saying I believe that the prompts would be considered a form of expression. Therefore, you could register a copyright on the prompts. It's a form of expression. However, at this current time, the Copyright Office does not view AI prompts as a form of expression. They view AI prompts as a simple idea, not a form of expression. Basically, they are viewing AI prompts like basic cooking instructions. So, like, if you think about recipes, right? If you think about a basic recipe, that is not copyrightable. Like, basic cooking instructions and mere lists of ingredients and basic cooking instructions are not copyrightable. It's non-copyrightable content. That's why you're always hearing people talk about secret recipes, okay? They don't want to let their recipe out because you cannot copyright an idea, all right? So a list of ingredients cannot be copyrighted. It's just a list of ingredients. A basic cooking instruction cannot be copyrighted. Okay, so these are things that cannot be copyrighted. So it looks like they are considering prompts as ideas and not a form of expression. The Copyright Office views prompts as instructions or ideas rather than the final creative expression that copyright law protects. So they are viewing the prompt like instructions. They are not viewing the prompt like a form of expression, and therefore it is not eligible to be registered for a copyright, okay? Insufficient control. Because AI models interpret prompts rather than following them verbatim and often produce different results from the same prompt, the user is not considered to have control over the final output. Complexity irrelevant. Now this is important, okay? Even extremely long, detailed, or complex prompts are generally not sufficient to grant copyright to the output, okay? Potential exceptions. In rare cases, if a prompt itself is exceptionally creative, e.g., a highly poetic or narrative text, it might be protectable as a literary work. But this does not give the user copyright over the image or text the AI generates from it. So do you guys understand what's happening here? They're basically saying the stance on it is that the prompt is just a mere set of instructions. It doesn't matter how complex it is. It is not a form of expression. It's just basic cooking instructions. Okay? Now consider this. What is the Copyright Office's stance on recipes? Right? Based on guidance from the U.S. Copyright Office, individual recipes defined as mere list of ingredients and basic instructions are generally not protected by copyright law. Now, I happen to know this to be true, okay? I published a ton of recipe books on Amazon many years ago and made a bunch of money off of publishing recipe books because I could just find them anywhere on the internet and compile them together and publish them, right? Because of this exact thing. It is non-copyrightable content. So I happen to know this to be true. Like, I am pretty familiar with this non-copyrightable content. Like, statistics is another thing that is non-copyrightable. Essentially, this stuff is in the public domain. Essentially, anybody can use it for anything they want, right? The way that it's not non-copyrightable is if it's a form of expression. So, like, if you have a cookbook, right? And you have lists of ingredients in it, and surrounding those ingredients, surrounding the recipe, you tell a big story about how your great grandma, this has been handed down in your family. This recipe for brownies has been handed down in your family for generations. Like, that whole story is copyrightable, right? That is a form of expression. But the mere list of ingredients and the basic cooking instructions are not copyrightable, right? Those are not copyrightable content, right? So, like, it's the same. What I'm saying, and I'm showing you this because what's happening is the Copyright Office is taking the same stance on those prompts. And now what they're saying here is that, like, perhaps if your prompt has some kind of, like, highly poetic or narrative text, right? Like, if it is truly a form of expression in and of itself, then perhaps that prompt could be registered. You could try to register for copyright on the prompt, right? But the prompt itself would be protected, right? That prompt would be copyrighted, but the output that was generated from that prompt would not be copyrighted. Okay, that's the Copyright Office's stance. And I talked about in the last video how a Supreme Court case was just thrown out because the District Court of Washington, D.C. said that any kind of output generated by AI is not eligible for copyright registration, period, right? They were sued, so it went to the Supreme Court. Supreme Court threw it out, okay? Now, so basically we have a precedent now. So any kind of like thing, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's written content, any kind of thing that's 100% created by AI is not eligible for copyright. It might as well be public domain content, okay? It is non-copyrightable. It might as well be public domain. Anybody can use it. It's open season. We're waiting on another case, right? We're waiting on another case to go through that is going to declare, it's going to determine, it's going to set a precedent for, it's going to set a precedent for artwork or other AI created content that has had like multiple iterations with the prompts, and it's had human editing done on it, right? So this is going to set a precedent because the one that's going to be going now has had over 600 iterations of the prompt, and it's had human editing, right? So we're going to see. Now that was denied too. They were denied a copyright too. They were denied a registration for copyright, sued, right? Sued the Copyright Office, and now that's going to be decided. And I believe that's going to be decided in Colorado. So we'll see how that turns out, but that's going to set another precedent for AI-generated content that's had a bunch of iterations and it's had human editing done, right? And we'll see what they say. Now, to swing it back to our original conversation, what does that mean for prompts? What it means is that the Copyright Office views your prompts like basic cooking instructions. It is not protected under copyright. They don't care how complex it is. The only way that they would consider it possibly for a copyright registration is if it had some kind of artistic form of expression to it, like you created some kind of art out of it, right? Now, I can see where someone would say, well, it is art, man. It is art. This is art to me. I mean, I've seen bananas taped to walls with duct tape and be called art before. So I could see where, someone might do that. But I can tell you right now, the Copyright Office is throwing this stuff out left and right. They have no interest in giving you a registered copyright for a AI prompt. I can tell you right now, they do not. They do not consider that anything but basic cooking instructions. Now, so so this is the AI breakdown. And I know, we're all a little skeptical of AI overviews. Let's read on, and then I'll show you another document, okay? When AI, okay, so let's see. When AI assisted works can be copyrighted, while the prompt itself and the raw AI output are not protected. A work containing AI-generated content can still be copyrighted if there is significant human authorship. How significant? Well, let's put it this way. They denied a copyright for someone who had 600 iterations on prompts and human editing. They denied that, right? So let's see how that goes, because they were sued, and now it's in court right now, so we'll see. Human modification. If a human significantly edits, rearranges, or adds to the AI-generated content, the resulting work may be protected. Creative arrangement. Combining multiple AI-generated elements into a curated original layout, like a comic book, can be protected as a compilation. Now, keep in mind, like I was saying yesterday, it can be protected as a compilation because that compilation is a form of expression. However, those individual images that were created by AI, people can take those, pick and choose, a la carte, and use them for whatever they want. It's essentially public domain. It's like if you took a bunch of public domain images and turned it into a comic book. The comic book itself, as you created it as a form of expression, would be protected by copyright. But the individual stuff inside of there has no protection, right? If that makes any sense at all. I know that's a little bit complicated, a little bit confusing. And by the way, I'm not a lawyer, okay? I have a lot of experience with this copyright stuff, but I'm not a lawyer. So make sure you seek legal counsel before you start businesses or make moves on this stuff. Make sure you get second opinions. I'm just trying to let you know what I know. Or what I think I know, right? And I can tell you right now, a lot of this AI stuff is up in the air. A lot of this AI stuff is behind the technology that's happening. Copyright law was not created for AI, okay? AI is a new kind of animal, and I want to talk about that in a minute after we get through this, because I think this is a very important point. But AI is a new kind of animal. But anyways, Right, so expressive inputs. If a human uses their original copyrightable work, like a drawing, as an input to the AI, they may own the copyright to the portions of that input that are still visible in the final output, okay? So if someone, takes a picture of something, they own the copyright to that image, and if they use that as the prompt, so if the AI output generates something that is taking elements from that picture, they would own copyright to those elements, but not the entire picture itself. Like if I said, oh yeah, listen, I took a picture of the marina here, right? And I put it into like an AI, and I said, can you expand this picture like double and put a sunset in the background or whatever? So I got a picture of a marina, okay, and there's like a boat in the marina, right? And I say, hey, can you expand this, and can you take the boat out of the picture for me? So what they're basically saying is the expanded version, anything that AI created, by taking that boat out of the picture and expanding none of that's protected by copyright. Only the original part is protected. Okay? International perspective. China. A court in China has diverged slightly from this, finding that in one specific case, using over 150 prompts plus significant retouches, the user has sufficient input to gain copyright. In the UK, some jurisdictions, such as United Kingdom, already had laws allowing for copyright on computer-generated works before the rise of modern Gen AI. Okay, so keep that in mind. To maximize the likelihood of copyright protection, creators should document their creative process, including all prompts, all iterative changes, and manual modifications made to the AI-generated work. Now, if you ask me, that is probably the key. Okay, fine. We're going to come back to this stance in a second. I want to talk on this a little bit more, but before that, let's head over here to this document right here. Now, this is official document from the United States Copyright Office. This is January 2025, okay? But not a ton has changed since this document came out. Copyright and artificial intelligence, copyrightability. Now, if we scroll down, okay, if we scroll down to right here, Part 2, Section D, prompts. That's page 12, okay? Page 12. Okay. Authorship and artificial intelligence. In the NOI, the office defined as AI as a system, product, or service that substantially incorporates one or more AI models and is designed for use by an end user. As component to a larger system, AI models consist of computer code, numerous values. Okay, so many of today's publicly available AI systems allow for the generation of an output from one or more inputs, such as text, image, audio, video, or a combination of mediums. A prompt is a common type of input, often in the form of text that communicates the desired features of the output. The AI system responds to these inputs, okay, right here. The AI system responds to these inputs by generating an output in the requested format: text, image, audio, video. Prompts typically describe a topic, theme, and/or subject that the user seeks to evoke and may include the overall style, tone, and/or visual techniques. Some are short and simple, such as a request for a cartoon spaceship. Others are more detailed, requesting a litany of elements. Users may enter a prompt a single time or iteratively, refining it until the system generates an acceptable output. The practice of crafting prompts that are optimized to elicit a desired result is sometimes called prompt engineering. Prompts can also be automatically optimized by a generative AI system that revises or expands them in the order to improve the quality of outputs. For example, ChatGPT automatically generates tailored, detailed prompts for OpenAI's text-to-image model DALL-E 3. As described below, however, the output of current generative AI systems may include content that was not specified and exclude content that was. Although AI technology continues to advance, uncertainty around how a particular prompt or other input will influence the output may be inherent in complex AI systems built on models with billions of parameters. Some observers describe AI as a black box, and even expert researchers are limited in their ability to understand or predict the behavior of specific models. Okay? In addition, many popular AI systems are unpredictable in the sense that their outputs may vary from request to request, even with an identical prompt. Some systems allow users to control this behavior and generate consistent results by setting a seed value, which is a number used to initialize the output generation process. For example, Midjourney users can set a seed and receive nearly identical images when repeating the same prompt. Even these systems, however, are not always able to guarantee perfect consistency. Legal framework. As the office affirmed in the guidance, copyright protection in the United States requires human authorship. This foundational principle is based on the copyright clause in the Constitution and the language of the Copyright Act as interpreted by the courts. The copyright clause grants Congress the authority to secure, for limited times, to authors the exclusive right to their writings. As Supreme Court has explained, the author of a copyrighted work is the person who translates an idea into a fixed, tangible expression entitled to the copyright protection. No court has recognized copyright in material created by non-humans, and those that have spoken on this issue have rejected the possibility. In two well-known cases, the Ninth Circuit held that text purportedly authored by non-humans, spiritual beings, and photographs that a monkey captured with a camera could not be protected by copyright. And in 2023, the U.S. District Court for the District of Columbia became the first court to specifically address the copyrightability of AI-generated outputs. The plaintiff challenged the office's refusal to register an image that was described in his application as autonomously created by a computer algorithm running on a machine. Affirming the office's refusal, the court stated that copyright law protects only work of human creation, and that human authorship is a bedrock requirement of copyright. It found that copyright has never stretched so far as to protect works generated by new forms of technology operating absent any guiding human hand, because by his own representation, the plaintiff played no role in using the AI to generate that work. The court held that it did not meet the human authorship requirement. The decision has been appealed. In most cases, however, humans will be involved in the creation process, and the work will be copyrightable to the extent that their contributions qualify as authorship. It is axiomatic that ideas or facts themselves are not protectable by copyright law. Do you understand? It is axiomatic that ideas or facts themselves are not protectable by copyright law. And the Supreme Court has made clear that originality is not required. It is required, not just time and effort, right? Originality is required. Okay? Statements that are self-evident, unquestionable, or derived from fundamental axioms. So what they're saying is it is self-evident and unquestionable. Okay? It's axiomatic that ideas or facts themselves are not protectable by copyright law. And the Supreme Court has made clear that originality is required, not just time and effort. Okay? The court rejected the theory that sweat of the brow alone could be sufficient for copyright protection. To be sure, the court further explained, the requisite level of creativity is extremely low. Even a slight amount will suffice. The vast majority of works make the grade quite easily, as they possess some creative spark, no matter how crude, humble, or obvious it might be. More than a century ago, the court analyzed the nature of authorship in a case involving the then new technology of the camera, Burrough-Giles, Lithographic Co. versus Cerrone. The court considered the constitutional challenge to Congress extension of copyright protection to photographs. The defendant argued that photographs were not copyrightable because they lacked human authorship. Instead, they were the product of a machine. The court began its analysis by defining an author as he to whom anything owes its origin, originator, maker, one who completes a work of science or literature. It described copyright as the exclusive right of a man to the production of his own genius or intellect. Applying this framework, it identified numerous creative contributions made by the photographer, including posing the subject in front of the camera, selecting and arranging the costume, draperies, and other various accessories, arranging the subject so as to present graceful outlines, and evoking the desired expression. In sum, the use of a machine as a tool does not negate copyright protection, but the resulting work is copyrightable only if it contains sufficient human-authored expressive elements. More recently, a case involving more than one human contributor, courts have grappled with the nature of the contribution necessary to qualify as authorship. The Supreme Court provided additional guidance in the context of a commissioned sculpture. The parties in Community for Creative Nonviolence versus Reed disputed who the author of the sculpture was, the nonprofit organization that conceived of it, or the artist asked to make it. The court concluded that the artist's contributions, which included sketching the design and executing his creative vision in a tangible medium of expression, made him an author. In a remand to the trial court to determine whether the organization could be a joint author of the sculpture, the DC Circuit made clear that commissioning the sculpture and providing detailed suggestions, this is important, detailed suggestions and directions were insufficient, as such contributions constitute unprotectable ideas. Okay? This is important. In a remand to the trial court to determine whether the organization could be a joint author of the sculpture, the DC Circuit made clear that commissioning the sculpture and providing detailed suggestions and directions were insufficient, as such contributions constitute unprotectable ideas. Such contributions constitute unprotectable ideas. The Third Circuit engaged in a similar analysis in Andrian versus Southern Ocean County Chamber of Commerce. Andrian involved an authorship claim by a plaintiff who had asked a printer to rescale and print a collection of maps. The plaintiff had expressly directed the copy's preparation and specific detail so that the compilation needed only simple transcription to achieve final tangible form. Because the printer did not change the substance of the plaintiff's original expression, the court held that the plaintiff was the author. Applying CCNV, it stated that the author is the party who actually creates the work. That is, the person who translates an idea into an expression that is embodied in a copy by himself or herself, or who authorizes another to embody the expression in a copy. Although an AI-generated output cannot be considered a joint work with respect to the user and AI system, a joint authorship provides a helpful analogy in assessing whether a party contributed sufficient expression to be considered an author. To be a joint author, one must make a copyrightable contribution. A person who merely describes to an author what the commissioned work should do or look like is not a joint author for purpose of the Copyright Act. So following sections applied to these legal principles in the context of generative AI systems, after describing uses of computer-assisted tools in the creation process, we discussed the following three kinds of human contribution to AI-generated outputs. Prompts that instruct an AI system to generate an output. 2, expressive inputs that can be perceived in AI-generated outputs. And 3, modifications or arrangements of AI-generated outputs. Okay, so let's focus here on prompts. Okay, assistive use of AI systems. Many commentators express concern about continuing the long-standing growing of use of computer-assisted tools in the creation process. They point to various tasks that have been performed in creative fields for years, some of which now incorporate recent developments in AI, such as aging, de-aging actors, identifying chord progressions, detecting errors in software code, and removing unwanted objects or crowds from a scene. Commenters argued that these types of uses of AI should not affect the availability of copyright protection for the output. The office agrees that there is an important distinction between using AI as a tool to assist in creation of works and using AI as a stand-in for human creativity. While assistive uses that enhance human expression do not limit copyright protection, uses where an AI system makes expressive choices require further analysis. This distinction depends on how the system is being used, not on its inherent characteristics. So this is complicated stuff. It's not like cut and dry, right? And they are saying that. They're saying as much. Commenters also identified situations where creators have begun to experiment with using AI as a brainstorming tool. The Recording Academy, for instance, stated that many Academy members already use generative AI as a tool to assist them in creating new music, including through song ideation. Another stakeholder noted that AI can be used to structure or create a preliminary outline for literary works. In these cases, the user appears to be prompting a generative AI system and referencing, but not incorporating the output in the development of her own work of authorship. Using AI in this way should not affect the copyrightability of the resulting human authored work. What what this is saying is that it's okay if you're using AI to brainstorm. The finished product can still be yours as long as you're writing it, as long as you're creating it, right? But here's the issue of the day: prompts. Commenters' views. Many of the comments received in response to the NOI focused on the legal implications of creating outputs by providing prompts to an AI system. At the outset, as several commenters noted, prompts themselves, if sufficiently creative, may be copyrightable. The copyright status of the output generated, however, is a separate question. Most commenters agree that inputting simple prompts is insufficient to make a user the author of the AI-generated output. Several describe prompts as unprotectable ideas or instructions. The American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, a performing rights organization, asserted that where a human's involvement is limited to simple generation of minimal queries and prompts for an AI tool, the resulting material is not entitled to copyright protection. The Brooklyn Law Incubator and Policy Clinic asserted that a simple general prompt lacks enough human creativity for the output to qualify for copyright protection. The prompting user is no more an author than someone who tells a musician friend to write me a pretty love song in a major key and then falsely claims co-ownership. By contrast, other commenters disputed the notion that prompts merely influence the AI system and do not provide specific instructions to create a particular expressive result. For example, the Intellectual Property Owners Association stated that if a user prompts Midjourney to produce an image or a series of images of cityscape underwater, the user is going to get a cityscape underwater. Commenters' views on more detailed prompts, including those that are revised and repeated, varied. Some viewed highly detailed prompts as sufficient to make some AI-generated outputs copyrightable. Professors Pamela Samuelson, Christopher John Sprigman, and Matthew Stagg stated that sophisticated prompts that specify details of an image should be sufficient to meet the human authorship requirement, and that a person who instructs a generative AI with enough detail, such as that model output reflects that person's original conception of the work, should be regarded as the author of the resulting work. Another commenter asserted that with detailed prompts, users can achieve remarkable control over the expressive elements of the work, such as lighting, pose, style, expressions, and setting. In contrast, Authors Guild argued that the unpredictability of the prompt-to-output generation process makes it difficult to show that there was sufficient control and consequently a sufficient closeness between conception and execution. Others agreed. Adobe, for instance, stated that when you submit a prompt or an idea, then you receive an output based solely on the AI's interpretation of that prompt, and the AI's expression of that idea is not copyrightable. Several commenters described AI systems as black boxes, meaning that not only do users in most cases not know what will inform the AI's response to prompts, but that even developers of AI systems cannot generally predict output or explain why they include certain elements and not others. Okay, so this goes on and on. I won't bore you anymore with that, but I will just say that what you're looking at right now is that, like, if you have prompts, text prompts, no matter how complex or detailed they are, if you try to register a copyright on them, it will probably be denied. Perhaps if you got a whole collection, a whole library of prompts, perhaps the library of prompts that you have, it will be able to be copyrighted as a collection. You know what I mean? Because it's a form of expression. It's a library of prompts. So in that case, you would have a copyright on that particular library of prompts, but not the individual prompts inside the library. You know what I'm saying? Just as a whole, like someone couldn't take your complete collection of, prompts that you have in your library and just try to publish it as is, like it's their library of prompts now. You'd probably be able to get a copyright registration on the library prompts. I'm not sure though. I am not sure. I've never tried that. What it looks to me like, if you look into this, it looks to me like the Copyright Office doesn't want to give you copyright registration on AI prompts, and it doesn't want to give you, copyright registration on anything the AI created. Okay, it doesn't want to do it. Here's where the problem is, and here's why I think that eventually this will change. I'll tell you why. So on the one hand, the Copyright Office only wants to acknowledge human-created work, okay? Human-created work. And it's denying all of these things that were created by something that's not human, okay? Now, the problem with that is there's a lot of, people out there who want to use AI to make money. Right? Big time companies that want to use AI to make money. But they want protection. They want protection. They want their stuff to be copyrighted. I mean, think about it. If you got a big movie studio and, half their movie is made with generative AI and they can't copyright it, that's not good for them. They want a moat around their intellectual property. And they don't have it the way things currently are. Now, also, I think that there's a situation where, in my view, there's a situation where, if you're acknowledging that humans didn't create this stuff, like it was created by something else, something that's not human, and you only grant copyright to humans, and so you're not going to acknowledge this as a tool. You're saying this is more than a tool. This is not just the tool. This thing is taking over the creative process. Therefore, we're not going to grant you a copyright on it because it's taking over the creative process. It's doing all the creative stuff. So you're not going to grant a copyright on it. But by saying that, you're kind of saying that this is more than a tool. This is more than a tool. This is something else. This is like another creature or something. It's something different than a tool, right? Those monkeys that were taking pictures and stuff, they wouldn't grant copyright on any of those pictures either because the monkeys aren't human. But monkeys, they have protections. They have animal rights protections. Monkeys have protections. So if you start saying the AI is doing creative things and it's not just a tool, it's expressing creativity, it's expressing these creative works or whatever, I mean, does that open the door that you're going to have to start worrying about rights for AI? How's it going to work? To me, it seems like the simple, easy way is just to say, oh, nope, AI is just a tool. It's just a tool. We're going to start letting you, have copyright. You can register copyright on your AI created works. I could see it. I could see them letting people register copyrights on AI created works just so they don't have to deal with this concept that AI is more than just a tool, right? I could see it. Who knows where it's going to go? But what I can tell you right now, as it stands, it's fluid. It's a fluid situation. But as it stands right now, from everything I've researched and everything I was reading to you guys, the Copyright Office in the United States, at least, views AI prompts as nothing more than, basic instructions. And basic instructions are not copyrightable. So, anyways, hope that's helpful to you. I'm Cam from Epic Conversions. If you like this live stream, make sure you subscribe to my Substack here. Drop me a line in the comment section. I'd love to hear what you think about this issue. Your comments help me out a ton. Subscribe for future issues, for future episodes here. And, if you want to join my email list, I think that's a good thing to do. If you want to know how I do what I do, it's the best thing to do is to get over to epicconversions.com and sign up for my email list. So anyways, that's all I got for you, and I'll see you. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday. Peace now.